The loud crash of metal woke me up at 6:15 a.m. I jumped out of bed and ran to my window. I couldn't believe what I saw. Two big yellow bulldozers were breaking through my front gate. Men in matching clothes followed behind them. A black SUV parked, and a man in an expensive suit stepped out. It was James Wilson, the president of Pine Ridge HOA, a group I never joined and that had no right to be on my land. Wilson pointed at my old barn and shouted orders like he owned my farm. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone. I made two important calls, first to Sheriff Davis, then to my old Navy SEAL buddy Mike. What happened next would change not just my life, but how HOAs work across the whole state. Before I tell you this true story, leave a comment telling me which country you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe for more real stories about fighting against people who abuse their power. 4 months before the bulldozers came, I was living my dream. After saving money for 12 years from my job as a hospital manager, I finally bought 5 acres of farmland with a small house that had been in the Johnson family for generations. The farm was just outside city limits, perfect for what I wanted. No rules about what color to paint my house. No neighbors telling me what to do. And most importantly, no HOA. The land wasn't fancy, but it was mine. The barn needed work and the house needed updates, but that's exactly what I wanted, a project to make my own. My grandfather taught me carpentry when I was young, so I knew how to fix most things. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free. My property sat next to Pine Ridge Estates, a fancy neighborhood where houses cost at least $750,000. A small stream and a row of old oak trees separated my farm from their perfect lawns. I rarely saw the people who lived there, and that was fine with me. That peaceful life ended on a Monday morning when I found a white envelope stuck to my front door. No stamp, no knock, just an official-looking letter sealed with a gold sticker that said Pine Ridge Estates Homeowners Association. I opened it, confused why they would send me anything. The letter made my stomach drop. Notice of violation. Your property has been added to Pine Ridge Estates through municipal boundary change #R437. You are breaking 14 community rules, including unapproved structures, unacceptable appearance, and prohibited farming activity. Fine, $7,500. Deadline to fix, 30 days. At the bottom was James Wilson's signature, HOA president, with a phone number. I called right away. A woman with a crisp voice answered. This is Ryan Mitchell. I got a violation notice for my property on Old Mill Road, but there must be a mistake. I'm not part of Pine Ridge Estates. One moment, please. The line went quiet for almost a minute before she came back. Mr. Wilson can see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. to discuss your violations. But I'm not part of any HOA, I insisted. There's been a mistake. Municipal change #R437 added outside properties to Pine Ridge last month, she said. The meeting will explain your options. Would you prefer a different time? Shocked, I agreed to the meeting, then hung up and immediately called the county records office. The clerk sounded tired when I explained my situation. You're the third call this week about boundary changes, she sighed. Let me check your property number. After a few clicks, she confirmed what I already knew. Your property is not within any HOA area. There is no record of a municipal change affecting your land. So this violation notice is fake? I asked. I can't legally call it that, she replied carefully. But I'd suggest bringing your deed to the meeting and recording any conversation. Wilson's office was on the top floor of a glass building downtown. His receptionist directed me to a leather chair facing a large desk. Wilson walked in moments later, a tall man in his 60s with gray hair and a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Mr. Mitchell, he said without offering to shake hands. I understand you have questions about your violation notice. I placed my property deed on his desk. I have documents showing my land is not part of Pine Ridge Estates or any HOA. Wilson barely looked at the papers. That's outdated. Municipal change #R437 added boundary properties for infrastructure improvements. Your cooperation would be appreciated. I checked with the county records office yesterday. No such change exists. A flash of anger crossed his face before he regained his calm. There's often a delay in county records. However, I can make this simple for you. He slid a document across the desk. This is an offer to buy your property at fair market value. Sign today and all violations disappear. I looked at the offer, $210,000. My property was worth at least twice that amount. This is ridiculous, I said, standing up. My land isn't for sale and it's not under your control. Wilson's smile disappeared. Mr. Mitchell, Pine Ridge Estates is expanding. The new phase needs your parcel. You can sell willingly at this price, or we can make owning it so difficult that you'll beg us to take it off your hands. Are you threatening me? I'm offering a business solution, he replied coldly. Ask Sarah Thompson what happens when people refuse reasonable offers. Who is Sarah Thompson? She owned the farmhouse on River Road. Similar situation, similar stubbornness. She sold for much less eventually after the fines, legal fees and property damage became too much to bear. I gathered my documents, my hands shaking with anger. Stay off my property, Mr. Wilson. As I reached the door, he called after me, the bulldozers are scheduled for compliance enforcement on your barn next Monday at 6 a.m. It doesn't meet our architectural standards. I drove straight to the sheriff's office, where Deputy Rodriguez listened to my story with growing concern. He reviewed the violation notice and made copies for their files. Unfortunately, this falls into a gray area between civil and criminal matters, he explained. If they trespass, call us immediately. But these fake incorporation schemes are becoming common. HOAs know the system is slow to respond. So I just wait for them to destroy my property? I asked. He handed me his card. Call the second anyone steps foot on your land without permission. Document everything. And maybe talk to Mark Johnson at the county commissioner's office. He's been tracking these cases. Mark Johnson, a busy-looking man with coffee stains on his tie, met me that same afternoon. Classic land grab, he said after reviewing my documents. Wilson Construction, owned by James Wilson's son, just got permits for a luxury condo development. They need adjacent properties. But why target me? There's undeveloped land all around Pine Ridge. Your parcel is the access point to the stream, he explained, pulling up a map on his computer. See this blue line? Water access increases property values by 30%. Without your land, their development loses its main selling point. What can I do? Fight legally and publicly. I've seen 5 similar cases this year. The HOAs back down when exposed. He handed me a business card for Lisa Chin, attorney at law. She specializes in property rights. Tell her I sent you. Lisa confirmed my worst fears. They're betting on intimidation working before legal remedies can catch up. File a restraining order immediately, but also prepare for them to ignore it. Ignore a court order? They'll claim miscommunication or clerical error, pay a small fine and continue. Meanwhile, if they damage your property, your only recourse is civil court, which takes months. So I just watch them bulldoze my home? She leaned forward. Document everything. Get security cameras. And find allies, other victims, neighbors who value property rights. These bullies count on isolating their targets. With 6 days until the threatened bulldozer appearance, I worked frantically to protect my property. I installed security cameras at every corner, strengthened my gate with metal posts, and placed no trespassing signs every 20 feet along my boundary. Lisa filed an emergency restraining order against Pine Ridge Estates HOA, Wilson personally, and any agents acting on their behalf. The judge granted it but warned that enforcement might be challenging without law enforcement present. Then I remembered Wilson's words, ask Sarah Thompson. It took several calls, but I finally found her living in an apartment across town. They destroyed me, she said when I explained my situation. Her voice sounded empty, defeated. First came the violations. Then strange accidents, broken windows, cut water lines. When I still wouldn't sell, someone poisoned my garden. Police said there wasn't enough evidence to pursue charges. How did they finally get your land? They didn't need to bulldoze my house, she explained bitterly. They just made life unbearable until I gave up. I sold for 40% of market value just to escape. Wilson's son broke ground on new condos the very next day. Her story chilled me to the bone but also strengthened my resolve. That night, I posted in the county community forum, urgent, Pine Ridge Estates HOA threatening to bulldoze private property. Meeting at my house tomorrow for anyone who's experienced similar intimidation. I expected perhaps 5 or 6 people. 23 showed up. They came from across the county, people who had fought similar battles against aggressive HOAs. Some had won, many had lost. All were angry. Among them was Mike Taylor, a former Navy SEAL who had served with me in Iraq. When I saw your post, I knew I had to help, Mike said. And I'm not coming alone. Sunday night I barely slept. At 5 a.m., I gave up trying and made coffee, checking my security camera feeds over and over. Lisa had coached me on what to say and do when Wilson's crew arrived. The sheriff promised to send deputies but warned they might be delayed by shift change. At 5:45 a.m., Headlights appeared on the road leading to my property. Not just a few, a convoy. My heart pounded as I counted. 2 bulldozers, 3 pickup trucks, and Wilson's black SUV. I called the sheriff's emergency line. They're here. Multiple vehicles approaching my property with construction equipment. Units are dispatched, the dispatcher assured me. ETA? 15 minutes. 15 minutes too late, I thought, watching the lead bulldozer approach my gate. I made my second call, to Mike. He answered immediately. We see them. Hold tight. Before I could ask what he meant, the bulldozer crashed through my reinforced gate, splintering wood and bending metal. Security lights flooded the area as my cameras recorded everything. Wilson emerged from his SUV, pointing toward my barn while workers unloaded equipment from the trucks. I stepped onto my front porch, phone recording video, restraining order in hand. This is private property. You are trespassing. I have a court order prohibiting this action. Wilson barely glanced my way. Proceed as planned, he instructed the bulldozer operator. Remove the non-compliant structure. The massive machine rumbled toward my barn, its metal blade gleaming in the early morning light. I stood my ground, continuing to record while shouting legal warnings that seemed increasingly useless. That's when we all heard it, the unmistakable sound of multiple engines approaching fast. Not police cruisers, but a wall of headlights coming down the road from the opposite direction. 8 pickup trucks roared onto my property, forming a blockade between the bulldozers and my barn. From each vehicle emerged men and women in work clothes, many wearing caps or shirts identifying their military branches. Mike led them, walking calmly toward Wilson. Morning, Mike said pleasantly, though his expression was anything but friendly. Looks like you folks are trespassing. Wilson's face twisted with rage. This is a legal HOA enforcement action. Remove yourselves immediately. Interesting, Mike replied, because I just got off the phone with Sheriff Martinez. He says there's no legal HOA jurisdiction here. He gestured to the people lined up behind him. We're all homeowners from across the county. Some of us are veterans who don't appreciate seeing American property rights violated. Wilson pointed to the bulldozer operator. Continue with demolition. The operator glanced nervously between Wilson and the 30-plus witnesses now filming with their phones. He cut the engine. Not getting involved in anything illegal, sir? The second bulldozer operator followed suit, powering down and climbing out of the cab. Wilson's face turned purple. He stormed toward his SUV, shouting into his phone about insubordination and contract violations. That's when the sheriff's cruisers finally arrived, 3 of them, lights flashing. Sheriff Martinez approached, taking in the scene with an experienced eye. Mr. Wilson, he said, I believe my office contacted you regarding a restraining order prohibiting you from entering this property. This is HOA enforcement, Wilson insisted, waving a document. Municipal change doesn't exist, the sheriff finished. We checked thoroughly after Mr. Mitchell filed his complaint. He turned to his deputies. I want statements from everyone. Document the damage to the gate. He faced Wilson again. Your vehicles are impounded as evidence of trespassing. Your people can call for rides or accept transportation to the station for questioning. Wilson's arrogance finally cracked. This is outrageous. I'll have your badge. Sheriff Martinez remained unimpressed. You'll be receiving charges for criminal trespassing, destruction of private property, and violating a court order. I suggest you call your attorney. As Wilson was escorted to a cruiser, I noticed a woman with a professional camera filming everything from the road. Mike nodded toward her. Local news. They're very interested in HOA overreach stories lately. For the first time that morning I smiled. The next few weeks brought developments I never could have imagined. Wilson was charged with multiple offenses including criminal trespassing, destruction of property, falsifying documents, and attempted fraud. His son's construction company lost its permits pending investigation. More shocking were the revelations that emerged during the investigation. Sarah Thompson wasn't the only victim. Wilson and his son had systematically targeted at least 12 properties over 3 years, using fabricated HOA authority to intimidate owners into selling below market value. Most disturbing was the discovery of a county clerk who had been falsifying records in exchange for bribes. The entire scheme unraveled when investigators found spreadsheets detailing which officials had been paid for which favors. The local news ran a 4-part special titled, HOAs, Protection or Predation? Featuring my story prominently. Lisa Chin represented not just me but 7 other property owners in a class action lawsuit against Wilson, his son, and the Pine Ridge Estates HOA board members who had known about the scheme. Mike and his veteran friends formalized their impromptu defense force into the Property Rights Protection Network, offering support to homeowners facing similar intimidation. They established a 24-hour hotline and provided free security assessments for vulnerable property owners. 3 months after the bulldozer incident, the first hearings in Wilson's criminal case began. The courtroom was packed with his victims, media, and concerned citizens. His attorney tried desperately to portray the scheme as mere aggressive business tactics, but the evidence was overwhelming. My client believed he was acting within his authority, the lawyer claimed. Judge Watkins removed her glasses. Mr. Wilson created fraudulent documents, bribed officials, and sent bulldozers onto private property. Those actions demonstrate clear knowledge of wrongdoing. Wilson ultimately accepted a plea deal that included restitution to all affected property owners, substantial fines, and a 4-year prison sentence. His son received 2 years for his role in the development scheme. The corrupted county clerk turned state's evidence in exchange for a reduced sentence. The Pine Ridge Estates HOA underwent a complete restructuring after homeowners revolted against the board that had enabled Wilson's abuse of power. The new board, led by a retired judge, adopted transparent practices and strict limitations on enforcement actions. Most meaningful to me personally was the state legislature's response. 6 months after the incident, they passed the Homeowner Protection Act, which established clear boundaries for HOA authority, created an oversight commission to investigate abuses, and implemented severe penalties for fraudulent incorporation schemes. 1 year after Wilson's bulldozers crashed through my gate, I hosted a gathering on my property. Mike and his veteran network were there, along with Lisa, Sarah Thompson, Sheriff Martinez, and dozens of community members who had supported the fight for justice. We stood in front of my barn, now renovated with help from Mike's team, raising glasses to property rights and community strength. The old structure had been transformed into a meeting space where homeowners could learn about their rights and find resources to fight overreach. To Ryan, Mike toasted, who stood his ground when others might have given up. I shook my head. To all of us, I corrected. What happened here wasn't about one property. It was about what happens when good people refuse to be intimidated. Sarah Thompson, who had used her settlement money to purchase a new home far from any HOA, smiled for the first time since I'd met her. They never expected us to fight back together. Sheriff Martinez added, Wilson's mistake was thinking that laws and boundaries don't matter. But in this community they do. As sunset painted the sky above my land, secure and protected, I reflected on how close I'd come to losing everything. Not just the property, but the principle that a person's home is their sanctuary, not a target for the powerful and greedy. The stream that Wilson had coveted still flowed peacefully along my property line. The new fence, stronger than before, stood as a boundary not just against trespassers, but against the idea that money could override rights. I never intended to become an activist, but sometimes life chooses your path for you. The Homeowner Advocacy Center now operates from my renovated barn, helping people navigate legitimate HOA relationships while fighting predatory practices. What Wilson tried to destroy has become a beacon for property rights across the state. As my guests departed that evening, Mike lingered behind. You know, he said, looking over the property that had nearly been stolen from me, sometimes the most important battles aren't fought in war zones. I nodded. But they're still won by people willing to stand together. The following week, I installed a new sign at my repaired front gate. It reads simply, private property, protected by community, defended by Navy SEALs, respected by law. The bulldozers never returned. Thank you for watching this true story of standing up against corruption and abuse of power. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share this video with anyone dealing with HOA nightmares. Drop a comment letting me know what you thought and which country you're watching from. Your support helps bring these important stories to light.